Good morning, everyone. I am so excited to have a longtime friend, Ryan Bonnici, with me, the CMO at G2.com. G2 is a great company that I love and go to frequently. Definitely friends of Cloud App as well. And I'm excited to have Ryan to kind of go through a lot of the stuff that G2 has been seeing with all this, remote work craziness and businesses cutting back. And understanding where their spend is going. But I want to start off with asking Ryan, what has kind of been the craziest, weirdest, most strange thing that you've kind of experienced over these last 3 weeks?
Gosh, hey, well, it's good to be here with you as well, Joe. I don't know what's the craziest thing, to be honest. I think I don't know, there's a few things. For me, like, it's weird, I think, for us all just going through such like a collective experience around the world, right? Like, there's like rarely a time where like everyone that you know, regardless of where they live and their backgrounds or anything, like is experiencing a similar thing. So that's been kind of really weird, I think, for me and unique. But then also, I don't know, it's kind of like weirdly brought me closer to friends around the world. And I feel like I've been reaching out more on like FaceTime and just on different like chat platforms to connect with friends, which normally, I don't know, I didn't do a good job of prioritizing. So that's been like, I guess, a really nice thing out of the whole of it. Maybe one of the weirdest things that I saw or have seen was a recording. I don't know if you've seen this. And it was of a workplace doing a Zoom call, and then one of the colleagues on the call didn't realize their video was on and went to the toilet while on the Zoom call. And it's truly the most amazing video ever for like the times right now. But also, I think what's crazy is like one of her colleagues, there's 10 people on the call, obviously then like downloaded the video and shared it on YouTube, and it's got millions of views. So like, she must be pissed. Just one of the weird things that I've seen out of this whole thing. What
That's
about
a really
you?
good point. Yeah. You know, I feel first week was super funky, and there was actually an earthquake in Utah. I don't know if you saw that.
Gosh.
So like, my wife was at the gym, and I was like throwing kids under the table and like pulling the toddler out of his high chair, and like, and that was like day 2 of like being home. So it was like, okay,
Gosh.
I don't know if I can handle this. Yesterday I got jury duty in the mail, so there was that kind of on top of everything. It's just been kind of just such a surreal few weeks. But to your exact point, like I feel like there is that collective connection, which has been kind of cool. That the whole world is, connected in this for good or bad. And I definitely have like connected, like I have this text string with my siblings and my parents that, we're talking almost every day. And like, I'm texting old friends from my childhood. And there's been a cool, like, focus on family and friends and kind of like taking a step back from what else was going on.
Yeah, absolutely.
So take me through kind of your background. What brought you to G2? You guys are fantastic at a lot of different pieces of marketing that I love. What's kind of been your collective strategy that you've tried to implement there?
Yeah. I joined G2 around 2.5 years ago. And yeah, when I joined, there was maybe, I don't know, 5 or so folks in the marketing team, and now we're around 50 or 60. So pretty like massive growth, especially in that first year. But my background is pretty much predominantly B2B marketing. So I was at Microsoft, Salesforce, ExactTarget, and most recently HubSpot before G2. And so, yeah, I mean, in terms of G2, when I joined, to kind of the latter part of your question, the board gave me really 3 kind of core things to own and really drive impact on. And that was driving buyer traffic to our site. So, we're a marketplace, obviously. So we have millions of buyers coming to the site every week. So millions of businesses around the world sending employees to kind of look for the best software for their companies. And that's booming right now for us, given that, Corona has kind of, as you and I were talking a bit before we started filming, but it's just kind of like accelerated the digitization of so many businesses around the world that maybe wouldn't have gotten here for maybe another 10 years or more, who knows? And now they've been forced to kind of like get digitized or become disrupted. And so, so that was kind of the first big one. And when I joined, we were maybe seeing, gosh, I want to say about like 500,000 organic visitors a month. And now we're seeing, almost 6 million visitors a month.
Nice.
So 6 million businesses coming organically, which is kind of wild. That's getting to the point now where it's like almost 2 million a week. So yeah, I think we've done a really great job building the buyer side of the business. The second kind of big thing that the board gave me was to really build out, traditional B2B marketing demand gen funnel for our sales team. So doing everything from field marketing events to, high, big deal support, product marketing kind of fits into that, obviously, and everything around digital and online conversion flows, and essentially just driving marketing sourced revenue for the business. That was something that really kind of was not super existent, I think, before I joined. For better or worse, really, the team had just grown really organically and naturally because we're a marketplace. That in itself drives a bit of seller demand for us because sellers like yourself are obviously always looking for where their buyers are. And if you're seeing, your buyers are all on G2, then naturally you guys will most likely reach out. So we have a lot of organic growth early on, and we've then really built that up. So that was sort of the second big thing that the board asked of me. And then the third was really about building a brand that businesses around the world know, love, and trust. And trust is obviously a really important value for us at G2, given almost all of our competitors are very much pay to play, and that, a vendor pays for their position in the ranking based on just PPC and how much they're willing to bid on that place. And none of our ratings and reviews are paid. They're all driven by authentic customer voice.
Right. Yeah, that's really cool. I think, you've done a good job with, each of those. I always tell like my content team, which is me and my other person on my team. Like, oh man, I've got a lot of content envy for G2. They always do some really cool stuff.
Thanks. Yeah, we've worked really hard, I think, to get that team really cranking. We've got some rock stars on that team. And so, yeah, it's been an evolution. I think content is like one of those things that, there's obviously so many different forms of content. I think we've always been really great at product marketing content for the most part, ever since we had a product marketing team, because we hired really strong folks from the get-go. And that's something that product marketing content you can immediately enable your sales teams with, and you immediately see impact. Content's being one, content in the purpose of driving traffic and buyers, which is, I guess, the way most people think of content. And most people build their teams around kind of top of funnel content in terms of heads anyways. I think we underestimated, or I certainly underestimated, how long it would take to really build that function. Not only the skills for the function, but just Google doesn't really change their view of you overnight. Like, it really takes a lot of time for Google to start to trust your authority in a space. And 2 years ago when we launched our blog, learn.g2.com, it really took us a long time, longer than I thought. It took us probably a year from starting to when we were seeing around a million buyers coming to that every month, which I guess is not a small number by any means, but I think we, me coming from HubSpot, where I was seeing 8 million visitors to our website and blog every month, I was like, oh, we could easily get there. And I think I was clearly like too naive to realize that, at HubSpot, it took us like 10 years to get to that point, and also when we started at HubSpot, content marketing wasn't really a thing. And so it was super uncompetitive. It was very easy to rank. Yeah. I think the other piece of the puzzle that I didn't even contemplate was that, for the HubSpot blog, we were such experts in marketing related content that it was really clear to Google, like, we were kind of the authority on that, because all of the content, for the most part, for the majority of years, was all around that topic. Whereas with G2, we kind of approached it of like, let's go wide and go across, like, how do we create content for all of these different software categories that we're there for? And I don't know if long term that's ultimately the best play necessarily. And we've started to kind of create more hubs around and subdomains around different specialties, purely just because of the fact that, like, you need to be really crystal clear to Google around, what your site is an authority on. So yeah, it's been a fun journey.
That's a really good point. There's You bring up a good point about just kind of a world of distraction. There's lots of people jumping in on the content game. How have you guys been able to stand out? I think your brand is definitely a piece of that, like you mentioned, as your third thing to kind of build at G2. What are some other ways that you've been able to kind of stand out?
I mean, I personally think the best way to stand out, regardless of, your business, is ultimately to have, a remarkable product or service. Because I think at the end of the day, the core thing that you're selling, if that's not remarkable, if that's not unique, if that doesn't have, a really strong value proposition in comparison to your competitors, then it's really difficult. And that's not to say that you can't stand out with really amazing marketing as well. But if your product isn't great, right? Like the marketing can only get in so many people, and then they'll try your product and they won't refer their friends, and then you won't have as strong of a kind of referral loop that maybe a business with a really strong product or service has. So I think for us, the way we try and stand out is, there's two parts to it. The first is we kind of ultimately see our number one customer as the buyer that comes to our site, even though the buyer doesn't spend any money with us. So we don't make any revenue directly from the buyer. But I think we know that if we can really give buyers what they want, then more of them will come to our site, and more buyers to our site will mean we can sell our subscription services to sellers like companies like Cloud App or Zoom or Microsoft. And so yeah, I think by trying truly like differentiating the product, that's helped us a lot. And so I think, what we've noticed over the last maybe 2 years is that we see, Capterra, they're one of our biggest competitors, if not the biggest competitor. If you look at their Alexa ranking over the last sort of a year and ours, like it took us a while, but we've now like overtaken them. And Capterra are the 10th biggest spender, I think, for Google AdWords, which is crazy. So I can't prove this, but I feel like they get organic lift and help from Google just because they spend so much money there. But it's taken us a long time to beat them. And I think ultimately we've obviously made improvements on SEO and content. No doubt they have as well. And I think ultimately what's helped is that Google can see that when someone comes to our site versus Capterra's site, they spend significantly longer on their site. They view significantly more pages on our site. Their time on site is so much higher. And so over time, I think buyers have learned that actually we hear this like also kind of from buyers that come to our site. They'll say that, I bought a piece of software for CRM or email marketing from Capterra's recommendations, and then the product was horrible. And then they realized only after the fact that they bought something that actually wasn't the top rated software. They bought something that was just paying to be in the number one spot. And so people get burnt, I think, really easily. And then they remember like who gave them that recommendation. And so over time, I think that's really hurt their reputation. So I'd say that's probably, I think by really like dialing in on our product and really dialing in on what is it the buyers want, that's helped us a lot. We've also, I think, over the last few years, launched a lot more products for buyers as well. So, as part of kind of everything going on with Corona, we launched a 90-day free trial of G2 Track, which is a platform that allows you to analyze all of your software spend, look at which users are using software, which users aren't using software. And then it gives your CFO as well as all your C-levels, like all of your business functions, really clear insight into, okay, when are all of our SaaS contracts renewing? Which ones should we renew? Which ones should we cancel? Which ones don't we have high employee usage of? And hence, like, let's dial back the number of users to lower costs. It automatically does all of that for you. And so I think that was like another thing that we were able to, really lean into over the last year to help buyers not only find the best software for their business, but then once they've bought that software, optimize their spend. So right now, right, like if I use me as an example, I get an email once a month from G2 Track and it says, hey, Ryan, like here is all the software that your team is currently spending on. Here is like your renewals. These contracts have auto renewals in place. So like if you don't want them, you better like tell them in advance. Otherwise you're going to pay without realizing. And given just everything going on, right, like there's been a few softwares that we've kind of paused now so that we don't have to spend any more money on, just to be really conservative given everything going on. So I guess if anyone's listening to this, like if you go to track.g2.com, you can use that product for free. And again, we're not trying to like sell folks on that. Like it's completely free product to get them through sort of everything going on right now and to help hopefully optimize costs. And then the trial will just turn off at the end of the 90 days and hopefully they've extracted the value from it. But I don't know, I think doing things like that is another way that we're trying to create really strong experiences that are relevant and timely for people given the times. So
yeah, I really like that. There's been definitely a movement of SaaS kind of, and you guys could fit into that as well. Kind of helping or like seeing how their product could try and help and benefit. Certainly a cloud app, like we've seen enormous growth with the push for remote work. And so, our thing was all about like, first of all, like all the last year of like putting out that content and like creating some authority has brought a lot of traffic into the site. So that's kind of cool to see, but also, we pushed like some product updates that we weren't planning to do until late April. We cranked them out because we knew it'd make the product faster and more reliable, and really tried to like up our game, knowing that people were gonna rely even more on it. So it's been kind of cool to see lots of companies jumping in on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's really fascinating. There's so many. I mean, we're seeing. I think I mentioned to you before we started going live, but we're seeing record numbers of software buyers on our site at the moment because of just that. They're really struggling to work out what software they need because they know that like they can't do their business in the way that they were doing it face to face now. So categories like remote work, remote learning, remote services, like video conferencing, etc., are just booming right now, and it makes a lot of sense. And people are really accelerating their buyer journey, right? So they're spending, instead of spending months and months, they're like spending hours and days deciding what they're going to buy. So that's been really helpful, I think, for us in our own renewals with our own customers because they can see such a surge of buyers on G2. So
definitely. What are some things, on the flipping on its head a little bit with like businesses evaluating spend, looking at tools? What are some things that G2 is doing now or has kind of always tried to do with your one-to-one customer relationships to ensure that, people are happy, having a good experience? The track product is a great example of that, I think. That's really cool. Knowing that that's what people are doing. What are some other things guys have tried to do to really try to create a good customer experience?
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, we've always been really, so I think of kind of like a funnel, right? So like awareness, consideration, decision. Before I joined, G2 was always really, an expert in decision-making content and consideration content. So, we scored really highly whenever we would ask buyers, where they found value in our site. Naturally, they said like they found a lot of value for helping them like consider different products as well as actually choose which one to buy. Where we never scored super well on was, helping them work out what products they needed in the first place and then helping them work out different strategies and ways to actually use those products. And that was a bit, I guess, at the genesis of what drove us to build learn.g2.com was because, we kind of view that really as more of like a hub for strategic content. So, let's say like you're a social media marketing manager at a company, you might go to Google and you might search like how to optimize my Facebook for Business page or how to write Twitter tweets that convert better. All of it, like those searches are indicative of that. Okay, maybe you don't have the right social media software that you need to do a better job at creating social posts or optimizing your account. Someone might search how to live stream on LinkedIn Live, like we're doing. And so we never really had content to kind of help them out in those kinds of sales inquiries. And so, we really leaned heavily into creating that content. And that way we can help them with their initial problem, give them a solution, and then also educate them on, hey, just so you know, there's social media software that you can use to do all of this more automatic and better, learn about the best rated software providers. And so, I think that was a little bit, that's kind of, I guess, a bit more of like an out of funnel way to attract people, right? In the same way that I'm sure at CloudUp, you obviously no doubt have lots of content around how to record meetings, how to,
Mhm.
drive efficiencies between colleagues remotely, and things that are very core to your product. Um, but then I'm sure you guys also have content that's like broader than just about, what your product does, but
Yep,
that is indicative that the person has a problem that could be solved by your product. So I think
definitely.
we kind of thought really well about that. And, those things help build trust and help build kind of brand affinity before someone even buys something. And also, they might not buy something at the company that they're at, but if they've learned so much from your content over the months or years, when they then go to another company where they actually need something that your company maybe sells, they'll come back in through the content and then be more likely to convert. And we see that in the stats at all the companies that I've worked at in the past. So I think we've thought really heavily about that. How do we help people before they know they need software?
Yep.
And then I guess, yeah, to kind of what we were talking about with G2 Track, we thought a lot more about, okay, we're helping them at that decision point in time. But, we were then starting to look at research, and we saw that, I think it was like billions of dollars. I can't remember. I want to say hundreds of billions of dollars of software is wasted every year by people that buy, a contract for all their employees. And then over the course of, a year, their needs change and then users stop using
Wow.
software.
Yeah.
And so, we were getting questions from people about, hey, I bought this software. It hasn't been really useful. We're coming up to like renewal. What should I do? And that was really where we then went into the G2 Track product and created that for them to help them actually, think about SaaS spend optimization. Because for a lot of companies, right, that are scaling up from, 50 to maybe 200 and 500 plus persons, they're most likely spending millions a year on
Yep.
software, or multi-millions, right? And especially when you're getting to 1,000+ person companies, then you're spending 10 mil, maybe more, on software stack, from the development side with your product to the marketing side to HR to all those different teams. And so it really kind of quickly becomes a really expensive cost.
Yeah.
So
That's
I think
that's really
we've
cool.
tried to think a little bit more about, just like the full life cycle and journey for our customers.
Well, as a contributor to learn.g2, I can say that there's definitely some good rigor there to get the good content.
Yeah, we
Um,
definitely only want high quality content there. Jordan, who runs that program, runs a tight ship.
definitely love it. Ryan, with the last like minute or two we've got, I think we could chat all day. But what do you see as the future of customer experience? Maybe from learnings from what we're going through right now. What do you see as kind of things that businesses can do and businesses will start doing based on customer experience needs?
Yeah. I mean, I think that ultimately, like companies that, when I kind of answer that question, I think to myself, what are companies that I personally have had amazing customer experiences with? And if I think on like the B2B side, two products that come to mind. One of, they're both kind of like freemium products that scale up from free to paid or low cost. One of them is, I forget what it's called, but I use it every hour of every day, Superhuman, to manage my email.
Yep.
And then started using this new software tool called Sunsama recently, which kind of helps you kind of pull in all your Asana tasks and then allocate them to hours of the day. So you assign kind of how long will the task take, and then you pull it into your day. They do a really amazing job at asking you every morning, what do you want to focus on today? These are the tasks that you didn't finish yesterday. So it kind of really focuses you on what you need to get done right now, which I sometimes find is like a limitation of tools like Asana, when you can just see all the tasks you're attacking, and it's like,
Sure.
like, what do I need to do right now? They created such an amazing experience for onboarding in the same way that Superhuman did. And I think the fact that I didn't have to speak to a salesperson to buy those tools, and B, had an amazing onboarding experience. I'd say like as touchlessly as you can create your sales process
For
and your
sure.
renewal process, the better. And I think this is something that B2B is getting better at, but B2C has always been really strong at this. There's like a few different products that I buy online, and one of them is really recently. It's this like vegan, so plant-based, organic food delivery, that like meals that come pre-prepared. It's called Sprinly. I don't know if it's
Nice.
all over the US or just in Chicago, but And they're amazing in terms of like, you just chat with their staff and you can really easily change the number of meals that you want one week. You can just say like, hey, I'm like, we're living in a different house right now while everything's going on. They change your address super seamlessly. Like I never need to like log into a back end. Everything is
Right.
chat based. And it just makes me want to kind of refer their business to others because it's such an amazing experience. You know, they're really available for me wherever I like, whether that's Facebook Messenger or on their homepage or through text, like really accessible. So I don't know. I think when I think about customer experience, I try and think about how do you reduce as many like friction points as possible to help the person. And then I also kind of think about how do you create an experience where they don't feel locked in. And I think this is something that like B2B software still struggles with, right? Like a lot of the time it's about, 1 year or 3 year, multi-year contracts, which can work for bigger companies that are established and aren't evolving as quickly as normal. But for smaller companies that every year they look different in terms of their DNA and their goals, multi-year contracts don't really work well, and then they end up wasting a lot of money. So I don't know. I think the B2B space has some ways to go in terms of like creating really great customer experiences.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think the tie, a lot of learnings from B2C is really for sure. We always look at ways to have sales assisted type things, but maybe self-service kind of the growth factor.
Yeah. And I mean, I think just if you think about all of our own experiences, right? Like when I bought my car, I like bought it online and then texted to organize a delivery date, and then it just appeared at my house. Like, do you know what I mean? Like that was
Yep.
just, I bought the car while I was like on a plane coming back from like San Francisco to Chicago after like a few drinks, right? And then I texted my wife and I was like, surprise.
I just bought a car.
Yeah, I was like, and I may have had a couple wines at this point in time. And that was when I bought my first Peloton as well. It was literally also on a plane after a couple wines. Anyway, my point is these companies have made it so touchless to buy that like someone in that kind of state can buy, right? And maybe I wouldn't have bought, the car for a few more months or for a few more years, but, it was so easy that I was able to do it on a plane after a wine or two. So, there's not many B2B SaaS companies in the world that make it that easy for you to buy from them, unless they're selling, like a $50 product and it's totally online. But yeah, so I kind of just think about how do you reduce friction as much as possible. A customer experience is definitely, a huge like value proposition, making
Awesome.
it really easy.
Love it, Ryan. Great talking with you today. Hunker down, hang in
Thanks,
there.
Joe. You too.
We'll get through
Thanks,
this together.
everyone.